You feel that? That nip in the air. The sniffles are starting. Winter is definitely on the way, folks. At this time of the year, I don't muck around. I fire up with Nature Bee's Power Pollen. It is packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, everything your body's screaming out for when that temperature drops. It's helped me stay sharp, healthy, and it helps me fight off that sluggish winter slump. It has been doing that for 20 years. And right now, you can grab a 6-month supply of Nature Bee's Power Pollen for $160. Plus, they're throwing in a bonus month and 2 bars of that famous pollen and honey soap. So before winter knocks on your door, click on the link in the description and get your supply of Power Pollen Nature Bee. Money back guarantee. Big thanks to Nature Bee for powering another episode of Bonafide. Righto, before we get stuck into today's yarn, let me ask you this. Ever been lying in bed late at night and you hear that dreaded skitter-scatter in the walls? You know it's rats or mice having a party. And you're not invited. Well, that's where Pestrol comes in. Their new rodent-free Max is the non-fuss, plug it in and forget it kind of solution. No poisons, no traps, just solid Aussie tech that keeps pests out of your home. Trusted for over 20 years, Pestrol's got your back. Buy the Pestrol rodent-free Max today and also receive the in-car rodent repeller absolutely free. Valued at $50, free of charge. It's a limited time offer, but you must use the code word BONA, B-O-N-A.
In a world where voices are silenced,
Please.
one man refuses to lie down.
It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
He's been punted not once,
40 years they've been trying.
not twice,
You couldn't fire somebody if they were horrible, doing a terrible job.
but 3 times.
You're fired.
He doesn't tell you what to think, but gives you something to think about. Welcome to the Bonafide Podcast with Luke Boner. And he's not
All right, here we go.
done
Hold your ears, folks.
yet.
It's showtime.
Well, good day, good morning, good evening, or wherever you are and whatever time it is you're listening to this podcast. Can you believe it? It's episode 45. And we got a lot for you this time. As usual, something for everyone. We're going to meet an amazing woman, and her name is Lindy Atkinson. And she and her husband have formed a voluntary group called Victims First. And she works closely with the government, and she is also very good friends with the White family. Remember Violene White, who was killed tragically and senselessly? She is good friends with Victor White and his daughters Julie and Cindy, and she talks about what she's trying to achieve, the frustrations she's coming up against in getting justice for victims. More on her a little bit later on, but it is fascinating. We're going to catch up with an old mate of mine, my old mentor from 2BS in Bathurst, a bloke I worked with for many, many years, and he's celebrating 64 years in commercial radio. Not all of them consecutively, because he's had a few health issues, but he's still on the microphone doing the breakfast program on 2BS in Bathurst. His name's Kerry Peck. He was also a big help to the Millennial when she was in Bathurst. And I can't wait to catch up with him. Truckee Tuesday is also coming up, and God knows what else, because we'll get through your feedback, we'll hear some of your thoughts, and we'll try and have a bit of fun along the way as well as learning something. Are you up for it, Millennial?
Oh, bring it on.
Bring it on.
News updates.
First of all, let's have a look at some of the news headlines making news today. There's a manhunt underway. A man was gunned down near a pub in Sydney's Inner West. emergency services rushed to the Harold Park Hotel at Forest Lodge about 6:40 p.m. on Sunday night. There were reports of gunfire. New South Wales police said that 2 men were shot multiple times by unknown people before they fled the scene in a car. Paramedics treated one of the men at the scene, who was transported to the Royal Prince Alfred Hospital in a serious condition.
And then when I walked around the corner, I saw the guy that been shot. One of them had been shot, was lying on the ground, so I ran up to him. And then probably 30 seconds later, some doctors and some other ladies that were inside the Harold Hotel came out as they started administering first aid, and that's when the police came.
He'd been shot multiple times.
One man was treated at the scene by paramedics but sadly died. He has not been formally identified as of the time of the recording of this podcast. We'll keep you posted with all of that. But what about this? This is truly bizarre. There's a call for action after a man allegedly threw coffee at a baby in Brisbane.
9-month-old baby Luca was on a picnic with his mother in Brisbane when a man approached, pouring a thermos of scalding coffee over the little boy. He then fled the area. The man is described as being in his 30s or 40s.
China is now being urged to take action against a Chinese national who allegedly threw hot coffee onto a 9-month-old baby, despite the man being protected from extradition under Chinese law. What? The little baby, known as Luca, was with his mum in Hanlon Park on August 27, 2024, when the man, not known to the family, dumped a thermos of hot coffee on the baby before fleeing the scene in a random attack which sparked public outcry. Remember this? The infant sustained burns to 60% of his body, including his face and upper body, and was forced to undergo multiple surgeries. It was all captured on CCTV. The man was seen fleeing the scene, but authorities were unable to track him down. Do you remember this, millennial? Because at the time, there was clear CCTV of this man, and yet the media for days didn't say, oh, the man was of Asian appearance. Now, that may have helped the police find this bloke. Now, you and I, Kelsey, could see clearly on that CCTV that the man was of Asian appearance. Aren't you allowed to say that? Is that racist? I mean, if you're going to describe someone and they are clearly of an Asian appearance, why can't you say that?
Well, maybe they didn't have all the facts at the time. And also Asia is a large
I know, but of
continent.
Asian appearance narrows it down a little bit.
Yeah.
A man then fled the country, went to an airport and fled the country. Don't you think that if the media had said the man was of Asian appearance, yes, it covers a wide spectrum, but you would have thought that maybe that would help the police. And let me just tell you this, when there is a crime and the alleged perpetrator is of Aboriginal appearance, they say the man was of Aboriginal Torres Strait appearance. Why didn't they say the man was of Asian appearance?
Well, I would suspect that they didn't, because most people would just take that as an opportunity to, condemn all people that look Asian. And obviously we've got a very large Asian population in Australia, and the last thing we need is everyone hunting down every Asian person because they think it's this guy. Let's be honest, most people would have just seen that and taken one look at it and not
assumed.
actually really studied their face or anything, So I think it's just really to avoid chaos.
Or vigilante behaviour against the nationality. But if, let's just say, there's a terrible crime and it's clear that the perpetrator is of African appearance or Sudanese, there would be concerns then, wouldn't there, that the public may then start vigilante behaviour towards anyone of that appearance. I guess, I don't know, but at the time I was bewildered that the media didn't say the man was of Asian appearance. What do you think, listeners? Luke Boner, radioguy@gmail.com. Now, some news that's just come through today at the recording of this podcast. You know how we've had a lot of feedback about electric bikes and scooters and should they be registered? Well, guess what? A Gold Coast paddleboarder who captured all this on video. There were 2 balaclava-wearing jet skiers, and they were hooning on the Gold Coast, and they passed perilously close to this bloke. They were wearing balaclavas, and they were dead set hooning. They could have capsized this paddleboarder easily. He was pushed to the shore. I remember years ago, Bob Carr, when he was the Premier of New South Wales, banned jet skis from Sydney Harbour. Now, these jet ski riders, one, they're wearing balaclavas, so they didn't want to be recognised. But, Kelsey, there's no registration on the jet skiers either. Are these jet skis becoming a problem like e-bikes, I wonder? There's an investigation going on, but police are saying that it's going to be very hard to find these people without the public's help.
But don't jet skis have registration? Like, don't you need, like, something on them to identify them, like boats?
The riders were wearing balaclavas and the police don't know. Maybe there's a serial number on the side or the back of the jet skis that can be identified. But if you look at the footage, and you'll find it, Kelsey, it's very hard to identify these people, but it's frightening. It's bullying.
Well, in New South Wales, and this is just what ChatGPT has told me, so it could be wrong, but it says, yes, in New South Wales, jet skis require registration if they have an engine of 4 kilowatts or more, or they are 5.5 meters or longer, according to the New South Wales government.
Well, there you go. Anyway, there you are. What else have we got coming up? There's a story here that young Australians might be doing it harder than their parents had. Young Australians may endure worse lives than their parents, according to the nation's productivity chief. Danielle Wood, the chair of the Productivity Commission, said young people are facing a future of lower wages, increased costs, and the impacts of climate breakdown without major government action to tackle major economic challenges. Danielle Wood also urged the government to put new regulations on AI, claiming existing rules on fraud, safety and discrimination are already sufficient. An argument running counter to human rights experts and unions calling for greater protections against abuse for workers. And let's just get back to the beginning of that there are concerns that young Australians will be doing it harder than their parents. And the thing that sticks out with me, millennial, is people your age, a little bit older and certainly much younger, may never, ever own their own home. Now, you and Nathan have got yourself into the Sydney market and you got a bargain. You got an absolute bargain, I reckon. It seems like an extreme amount of money that your mortgage is, but I think you've bought in the right spot and you're on an absolute winner. But are millennials and Gen Zs and younger Australians, are they in for a lifetime of hardship, especially when it comes to renting and buying and getting into the capital city real estate market? I think they are.
100%. Honestly, I'm now seeing a migration of my friends to places like Newcastle because it's a cheaper city to live in. You know, Nathan and I bought an old apartment in Sydney, and I've got to say it's really piqued my interest recently because if we stay in Sydney, we'll never own a house, right? And growing up, my dream was never to live in an apartment my whole life. My dream was to have my own house. And that seems like completely out of reach in Sydney. I think if we ever want to live in a home, we'll have to move out of Sydney. I think that's going to have big impacts on the city economy later down the track when all the people end up being in places away from major capital cities.
So do we have to address the immigration numbers? Possibly.
What does immigration have to do with it?
Well, if we're going to keep importing people into Australia when there aren't any houses to live in, it's going to make the market even more competitive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the first issue is the housing problem before we think about immigration.
Right. What about we pause immigration until we have more stock?
Why don't we just build more houses and provide easier pathways for people to access houses? I don't know why it has to go immediately to immigration.
But until we have that stock, I'm saying, Kelsey, listen to me.
I am.
Until we have more stock, should we pause immigration? Listen.
No.
We have a problem with housing and rents because there isn't enough stock. And why don't we build more? Exactly. And we've discussed this because there is a building materials shortage, but there's also a skills shortage. So once again, we're back at square one. We need to address this and encourage more Australians to become apprentices and tradies.
Yeah, well, we need people to build the houses, so I don't think
That's what I just
immigration. I know, so I don't think stopping immigration is the answer there because, you know, a lot of labour is driven by immigration. I think the number one cause issue is the housing supply, and also I don't think anybody needs 15 investment properties. I just don't think that is appropriate.
Well, you're going to tell people how many investment properties they can have.
Yeah. Well, your generation is the only one that really cares about it. If you were to speak to any younger person, they will tell you, we just want a principal place of residence. I don't know why we've commodified a human right, right? Like, it is a human right to have shelter. We need that to survive. I think it was the wrong step to commodify that. So then some people can and some people can't. I just don't see why anybody needs, you know, a bajillion investment properties if you're not if you're not in that career field.
How many people own more than, say, two? Let's find out the details before we go off here. But I don't think many Australians have a bajillion. What's your word? What was your word?
Lots of them do.
Yeah.
Especially if your generation.
Not many.
71.48% of investors own one investment property.
Are you going to suggest that we have a government tell you how much property you can own? Is the next step, and this is how much money you're allowed to earn? That's communism.
No, of course not.
That's communism. We live in a capitalist society. Well, yeah, folks, this could go on forever. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? How do we solve this? Let us know, lukemotorradioguy@gmail.com. So it's time to hear what you had to say. Kevin sent us a video. He wanted us to listen to it. It's from the Instagram account at I'm Matthew Fraser. What's this about? Let's have a listen.
Breaking news. If you've got a home, look out because Labor is about to tax it. This is fresh off the printing press and it reads today on the Daily Mail. Radical push is announced to tax Aussie workers' family home. Strong arguments for doing so. And this article is from two geniuses. These are geniuses from university. They're professors, of course. Another reason why you should not send your kids to university, because these guys are advocating for Labor to bring in a tax on the family home. It says, Australians should pay capital gains tax on their family home in order to tackle the housing crisis. Right, the housing crisis. I've got an idea. How about number one, stop the ridiculous amount of immigration that's pouring into this country. That's the first thing. Two, get rid of all the red tape. The biggest thing that's holding up housing, of course, in the costs department is all the government regulation, all the taxes that already exist in the chain of it building a home.
Well, we just discussed that, didn't we, Kelsey? So what is the answer? And are we sending too many people to university? Taxing the house. Well, it's not an old idea. Capital gains is certainly not an old idea. So taxing the family home, just remember that a huge burden on the tax system are people who retire that don't have enough to live on and then they have to draw on a pension. Maybe it needs to be means tested. Maybe if you have a house that's worth over $4 million, and once upon a time that was just impossible to dream of, but it's not so much now in Sydney, 3 million even. If that is your retirement and that is your super, and you want to downsize and have some cash to live on in retirement, that's going to save that drain on people drawing an age pension if you means test it.
Yeah.
And don't you worry, Kelsey, you and your sister and my kids are going to be okay once Nikki and I topple off the mortal coil.
I don't know about that.
Especially if I fly to Israel in October. It's another story. Anyway, I've been invited by a delegation to go to Israel for a week in October as a learning expedition. And my daughter, Hol, who flies for an airline, is absolutely filthy at me. She says, it's dangerous. Why would you go? And by the way, you'll be missing my 30th birthday. But she's absolutely filthy. It's another topic for next time, Kelsey.
Yes, when we have more details, that we shall invite the listeners into a conversation about what they want to know. Got this message from Gary. Let's have a listen.
You speak to Dave Littleproud. Here's a question that's been on my mind since the night shift, even before the night shift. Why are we paying tax on our overtime? Shouldn't we be paying tax on our 8-hour day and the rest is ours? What incentive is there to do overtime? That's my question for Mr. Little Proud.
All right, I can't wait to play that to David next time we have him on. And it's a very reasonable question. You pay tax on your 8-hour day or whatever it is. If you, where is the incentive to get ahead and work overtime or even a second job if you're just taxed completely out of it and you think, why bother?
You do get overtime rates though, don't you?
I think it depends on where
you're getting paid more.
And it all goes in tax. Should overtime be tax-free?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think we need to speak to a finance expert.
Well, why don't we talk to a finance expert and we'll put that
Shane
question.
Oliver.
Scotty Phillips.
Yeah, any one of them.
Any one of them. Or your granddad.
Yeah, I know. He's too old now.
Oh, no, he's very clever.
He's clever, but he's old.
He was once, by the way, Kelsey's granddad, Poppy, was a CFO for a very, very large company for many, many years, and he's one of the cleverest blokes I've ever met. He'd have a good opinion on that. Shall we bring Poppy in on the podcast?
Maybe.
Got this email from Cam. Hi, Luke. I was listening to you and the vice captain talking on the Man Cave about reality TV, and you're both correct when you say they can be staged, because a good friend of mine who was in the music scene knows a bloke who worked on The Voice. And he said that the judges on the show had already made their mind up about who they were going to vote for to win well before the final episode is shown on TV. The final episode, Millennial, that's viewer votes. The judges don't vote on the finals. Isn't it the viewers that participate in who wins the grand final?
It depends on the show, but I actually have some insight into this. So I knew somebody of somebody of somebody who was on Love Island.
That's a reliable source. Somebody who knew somebody from somebody who read it in the New York Post.
I just want to be aloof because I don't want to identify them, but they were on Love Island, and when it came to the final...
There's a quality show.
When they came to the final, they all had to record... They had to record 3 separate endings. So they had to pretend that each couple won, and they didn't actually know who won until it was announced on TV, but they had to record 3 different endings pretending the different couples had won.
You know why they do that? So that the couples don't blab. Even though they sign non-disclosure agreements, it's so that the cast and the crew don't know who won, so it's not leaked. These things are recorded way early. If you've ever been involved with a reality TV show, please get in touch with us because we want to know what really goes on behind the scenes. We've got this voice message from Dave.
Hi, Luke. Listen to your show today. It was probably the best episode I have listened to in a long, long time. It was fantastic listening to your old school teacher, and also the commentary regarding our environment. Also, I'd like just to say, I challenge you to go and see that movie Weapons. The guy that gave you a report of 9.5 out of 10 is obviously on LSD or has been paid a shitload of money to say it. Absolute worst movie in the world. I went and seen it yesterday. I spoke to the 12 other people that was in the cinema with me, and they all said it was crap. So where this guy's getting off on saying Weapons was a good movie, he's deluded. By the way, keep up the good work. I love listening to your show, but today's episode was the best for at least 8 months. Thank you.
We've been going for 8 months.
Yeah, jeez. Weapons.
Yeah, Shane loved it.
Shane Adam Bassett, it was his movie of the month. It looks very spooky. I sent the trailer to the Minister for War and Finance.
No, it's not her movie.
It's not her movie at all.
No, not her type of movie. This is kind of like horror thriller movies. I think they do divide people like this. Some people think they're amazing and some people think they're rubbish. I think horror is one of those genres where it really polarizes people.
Yeah. Anyway, this is all about the story about every child except one from the same classroom mysteriously vanishes on the same night at exactly the same time. And the community is left questioning who or what is behind the disappearance. It's a thriller. He says it's very hard to watch, but you can't look away.
Yeah, it piques my interest. I'll watch it probably.
Have you seen Weapons? Give us your review. LukeBonerRadioGuy@gmail.com and leave a voice message.
Now, Luke, I don't know if you know this, but I posted the video of you saying goodbye to your undies on the Facebook page on the weekend.
Let me just fill our listeners in on this. I'm a boxer short bloke now, but I've got all these undies downstairs, which are, what's the opposite to boxers? Briefs.
Briefs?
Yeah, and I hate them. And they're old and some of them are so thin and so worn, you could just blow on them and they'll disappear like dandelions.
A dandelion.
The minister said, I'll get you some new boxer shorts, but you've got to throw out those old undies. And so I did. And she videoed it and then stupidly gave it to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I don't know why you'd keep them around for that long. They looked haggard. They did not look good. But some people left some funny comments on that video. Tracy said, see, us women know when the arse is sagging and it's time to go. Tessa said, get some Step Ones, an underwear brand, best nut bras out there. And there were a couple of people suggesting this brand, Step Ones. Jeff said, they have holes for a reason, to let the jewels air out, which is mortifying to think about. Matt said, it's all fun and games until you can wipe without removing your jocks. Yep. Men are so gross.
It reminds me of the Seinfeld episode where Kramer goes to freeze his sperm and the doctor says he has a very, very low sperm count, and it could be because he wears jockeys instead of boxer shorts. And there's that fantastic scene where he walks into Jerry's apartment and he says, oh, it feels great. He says, boxer shorts? No. You haven't gone back to jockeys? No. Oh, no, Elaine. Do you realise that there's nothing between us and Kramer except a thin layer of gabardine? I'm out there, Jerry, and I'm loving every minute of it. See if you can find that scene. It's very good.
You went back to the jockeys? Wrong again. Oh, no.
What?
Don't you see what's going on here? No boxers, no jockeys.
Oh.
The only thing between him and us is a thin layer of gabardine.
Did you know, though, when couples are experiencing infertility and it's suggested that the men's sperm count is low, one of the things they recommend is literally icing your balls.
Oh, I don't want to. Is this where this podcast is going?
No, but I know this from a health podcast that I did.
Chelsea. What? Okay, we're here now. What?
Yeah, because your balls, like if they're too hot, it's hard to produce sperm. So they recommend, if you've got a naturally hot ball sack, to ice your balls when you're trying to have kids.
You know what's the worst thing? You know what the worst thing about getting a bit older is? If you're not
I don't want to know where this is going.
If you're not wearing jockeys, there's a good chance you'll sit on your own nuts when you sit down and someone when they hang. Anyway.
That is absolutely disgusting.
You're talking about icing your balls.
Yeah, but that's health advice.
This podcast has gone to shit. What have you done? It's your job to try and get us as many downloads and listeners and sharers as possible, and you've gone and hijacked it. What have you got another job now? Are you trying to? Is this your way of backing out?
Yeah, maybe. You never know. Always keep them guessing.
Always keep them hanging.
Yep. Oh.
Coming up, one of my old mates who's celebrating 64 years in commercial radio, and he's a fascinating character. He's grumpy. Oh, so would you be, 64 years doing breakfast radio. But he was also a great help to you, Kelsey, when you spent some time in Bathurst. His name's Kerry Peck. It's coming up. You know, there's not many people that can say they've been in commercial radio for 64 years. One of them is a bloke that I often refer to as my mentor. We've had our ups and our downs, but mostly ups. And he is still doing breakfast radio on 2BS in Bathurst. And I thought, why don't I have a chat with my good mate, Kerry Peck, and see how he's travelling? Because, boy, has he seen this radio industry change over the years. I'm kind of lucky enough to have seen radio go from AM into FM, and then, well, of course, we had AM stereo, and Pecky and I sort of grew up queuing up records and splicing tape and playing ads off cartridges. But Pecky actually goes back to the days when radio was black and white. And he's joining me now from his studio. He's just got off the air doing another breakfast shift on 2BS in Bathurst. And 64 years in radio, mate. Unbelievable. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you very much indeed for having me. You must be hard up for a guest, are you? Or something?
Desperate.
Desperate is the word, son. And in the words of the wonderful late John Brennan, Lukey boy, how are you?
Lukey boy, good to see you, my son. Yes. I've got some brickbats and some bouquets for you. Which would you like first?
Yes, wonderful, wonderful characters in this industry. And as you said, 64 years in November this year since I first started. I had a couple of years out with ill health and a few other things in a patchy career over the time, but thoroughly enjoyed every moment of it. For example, here I am, I'm taking over, Luke, so don't worry about it, right? But for example, this morning, played a bit of Chisel, played a little bit of Supertramp, and a couple of other guys like that, and thought, gee, this is what talked to Paul Toole, our local member, chatted to the mayor, Robert Stumpy Taylor, and, so it's good stuff. Love it.
It is good, and you are the heartbeat of that community, and you have been for many years. Because I was looking up some notes. I did some research, Pecky. You'd be very, very impressed.
Research. Love it.
You'd be very impressed. And it said that you first went to 2BS in 1969, but you were at 2LF before me, so you must have gone to 2BS and gone to 2LF. You started in Tasmania. Let's take us back to Tasmania. Great place to grow up.
I've got the story on this, if I'm not boring everybody to tears with this particular story. But I was at a boarding school because I was too dumb to go anywhere else. They had to send me to a boarding school. And I finished up sort of going, well, what do I want to do? And that was a big moment for me. And I can remember that I always used to love listening to radio serials. And I love listening to the wireless, as it was called back in those days.
I still call it wireless.
Because we're talking now pre-television days.
Wow.
What they used to call the golden days of radio. Not sure about that. But anyhow, and then I went to boarding school, and I used to listen to the station 7LA.
Launceston.
We wanted to market in crystal sets back in those days. We used to make these little crystal sets and used to listen to the radio at night time. And I thought, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I used to walk every Saturday morning into the radio station, 7LA in Launceston in Tasmania, and just wander around and just become a terrible nuisance. And then finally, I had a phone call from the headmaster at the school. Had a phone call. I was 15 years and 7 months. And he had a phone call from the manager of the radio station, and he offered me a job. And the headmaster met me on the quadrangle outside the school, and I thought, oh, what am I in trouble for this time? And he said, you've been offered a job at 7LA, and I can see no earthly reason why you should stay here. I think you should take it. And I did, and the rest is history.
Wow. 7LA, and I don't know much about 7LA anymore. It's called LAFM now, and they used to take my network show on the Triple M network. And I used to get a lot of calls from Lonnie. And my uncle, as you know, lived there. He moved there about 30 years ago and died last year in Lonnie. So we used to go down every year and visit. So I fell in love with Lonnie. I could live there. It's a beautiful, beautiful city.
That was one of my regrets, actually. I left there in I left there on a number of occasions, travelling around. As you do in this industry, you work at different places. I worked in Hobart for a while. Had a very short stint in Melbourne for a little while, and then, a few other jobs like that. They were all in radio, obviously. And then I ended up back in Launceston, and I came across probably the guy that was probably the greatest influence on my whole career. His name was Rod Muir.
Oh, wow.
And Rod Muir used to say, mate, do you like your job? And you'd say, yes. Well, get on with it, start doing it. And Muir was the sort of guy that used to say to you, right, in your market, wherever you were, what's your biggest employer? How many people are working there? And if you didn't know the answer, he'd say, well, you don't deserve to be working in your area. You should know this stuff, And over the years, of course, in Bathurst, I know almost everybody in Bathurst, and I also know most of the history, which people would like me to forget some of it, obviously. But no, he was probably the man that really was one of my great influences. Then, of course, you had other guys that were just the big stars of the day. Brian Henderson, wonderful man, lovely man,
Wow.
Then, of course, Bob Rogers, obviously another good guy. Lawsy, of course. I first met John Laws at the Launceston show in 1964.
Really?
And I was a panel operator, and John came down. He had a syndicated program back in those days on the Macquarie Network. And a fabulous guy. He was always very good and a very good mentor to young people as well. That was one of the things that he did very well. And Brian Henderson, of course, as you would know, a lovely man, great man.
Yeah.
The other great guy that I met over the years, I felt, was also a guy called Terry Deer.
Yeah.
Now, in the early days of radio and television, Terry Deer was a huge star. And he finished up, of course, doing news on Channel 7 virtually up until the day he died. And he was just another. So there's been some wonderful people in it. I mentioned John Brennan.
Yeah, Brennan.
Early in this interview. Probably one of the great guys and really one of the top guys in radio, really, when you think about it.
He was a star maker. But, Pecky, they were back in the days when the program director actually ran the radio station, hired the talent, sacked the talent, and formed the format. And now they're called content directors. Yeah, and they just take they take orders from the board and the sales manager. It's changed a lot. It's funny because radio, as you mentioned, launched the careers of many TV stars. Some of them made it brilliantly, like Graham Kennedy and Bob Dyer. Some not so much. Pecky, when I was at 2GB doing Drive a few months ago, and they're doing some renovations. Very different to when I was there, the place at the moment. But it's leading Sydney at the moment. It's just, so talk radio format is still working in Sydney. But they had a big picture of Jack Davey in a frame, and it was on the floor with some other pictures. And I was showing one of the young producers, and I'm not having a go at this producer. She is going to be a star. She's a really, really good producer. But I said, "Oh, look at that! I wonder what they're going to do with that." And she said, "What's that?" I said, "That photo there." And she said, "Who's that?" And it made me a little sad because I often look at Jack Davey as the godfather of Australian radio, but he didn't make the transfer to TV well, did he?
There was probably one of the reasons for that was he never quite made it. Of course, Bob Dyer did, because Bob Dyer, was a country cowboy that came out of the United States back in the 1930s or something like that, and was very successful in radio and also very successful in television. But in Davey's defence, at that particular stage, he was very ill with cancer as well at the time. But he had a couple of very ill-fated programs. What he tried to do, where Dyer was very successful with taking pick-a-box from radio into television, right? Davey wasn't as successful in trying to take some of his programs into television because you needed a more visual audience to run with it, if you
like
know,
the quiz kids.
Yeah, what I mean.
John Deeks.
For example, the other one, and I'm trying to think of his name, but I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he was a bit of a stutterer, and they used to edit his stuff, when he used to record it in radio, but they couldn't put him on television because they couldn't edit the stutter out, That was the Quiz Kids was the name of the program. So, all that sort of happened. But the transition from radio to television, some of them were very successful, as you say, but some of them not so successful. No.
Yeah.
Including me, by the way.
I could have said you could have done anything on TV.
I did a bit of television. I did a couple of kids' shows because, you see, I used to work...
Was your TV persona Uncle Kerry or Uncle Pecky?
No, I was working at 70X at the time, and Channel 9 and Launceston were there. And we used to do all the voiceover work and all the stuff for Channel 9 and used to get $5 a read, really big pay back in those days.
No, it hasn't changed much, actually.
Anyhow, we did a kids' show and we had the troll in the well, right? And I won't go into all the details, but the guy was in the news booth with a microphone in a 4-gallon drum, and we had a speaker in the well in the studio, right? And anyhow, this kid standing beside me, and I'm going, Uncle Kerry, ho, 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 and the troll's in the well. And the kid said, there's nothing in the, blub, blub, blub well. And of course, in those days, it was all live on air, so you couldn't blip it out or anything like that. So the television career was short-lived.
Well, I think television's loss was radio's gain, and you are well-travelled. I mean, you've been just about everywhere. I first heard of Kerry Peck when I went to 2LF in Young in 1980, and you had just gone back to Bathurst.
Yep.
And you had a bit of a reputation, Pecky. This is a warts and all chat, so... No,
well, let's not go into too much of the reputation because I've got a young grandson now who's 1 year of age, and I'm going to want to play this for him, so let's not go too deep.
Well, I can get Kelsey to do an expurgated version for your grandson. But there was a cleaning woman, I think her name was Mrs. Ponting.
Yes.
And she said, you didn't get to meet Harry Wilde and Kerry Peck. I said, no, but I've heard about them. And she said, Pecky could sit back in the big chair and pull the microphone towards him, and he could work the panel with his toes. She said it was amazing.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes. Another 2LF story.
Is this one we're allowed to tell? Go on.
Are we allowed to tell us?
Yeah, go on. We're allowed to tell anything. I don't have to answer the ACMA on my podcast.
Oh, good. The laneway at the back of 2LF came from the pub that I was living at, which wasn't a good idea for me, living at the pub, I might add. Anyhow, so I came up this morning to go on the air, and as was the want at 2LF in Young at the time, right? I've got to be careful here because they're in the network now too, by the way, my network. Anyhow, so I looked at the door and the door wouldn't open. I couldn't open it with the key, so I kicked it, and the whole door frame just fell in. Back in. So I thought somehow or other I explained it away to a guy called Errol, and you'd know who that was.
I know, he was the senior technician. There was Bill and Errol, yeah.
Then Ron Camplin bought 2LF and transferred me to Bathurst, back to Bathurst.
He did indeed. And then he had, Ron Camplin owned 2BS in Bathurst. Ron Camplin, the best thing that happened to me in my career, because he let me have my reins when I wanted to do talk radio at the age of 18.
Well, Luke, wasn't that the best training you ever had in your life, though, really?
Oh, I made plenty of mistakes.
And he made that available to you.
I made plenty of mistakes. I still do, but Ron let me make mistakes, I learnt. But he let me do talkback at the age of 18, and I was filling in for we don't need to mention his name, but the bloke that was doing the Women's Mornings show. It was called Women's Mornings.
Yeah.
And it was the 5th anniversary of the sacking of Gough Whitlam, and I'd worked out how to use the delay system, and we only had one line. And I said, should Gough Whitlam have been sacked? Constitutionally, it was correct, but was it morally right? This is me, and I opened the phone lines. And Ron was driving back from Canberra, and he listened in, and he rang the manager at the time and said, who's that doing talkback on my radio station? He said, his name's Luke Boner. Don't worry, as soon as he comes off air, I'm sacking him. He said, no, give him that shift full time.
Yes.
And I was filling in for the program director, so I wasn't very popular. Anyway, that's a true story.
I mean, some of the people that came out of Camplin, for example, were, Kenny Sutcliffe, Channel 9 personality for many years. Ken started at 2MG. Ken Sparks started at 2MG, and he gave everybody a chance. Everybody that came into the radio station had the opportunity to get into the industry, and it doesn't happen these days. It's such a shame to see the way the industry's gone, I suppose I'm being rude when I say this, but half-baked comedians try to be radio people, and it doesn't work.
Or people who win reality TV shows, get prime breakfast shows on Today FM,
Yeah.
Yeah, while you're up at stupid o'clock, can we just talk about how rats always seem to wait until the middle of the night to make their move? You're finally drifting off after a long shift and then skirt, they're doing laps like it's the Bathurst 1000. That's why I've been using Pestrol Rodent-Free Max. You just plug the thing in and boom, eviction notice served. There's no blood, there's no guts, no traps, no poisons. Just science doing its job while you get to sleep like a log. And because I know you're thinking, yes, it's safe for pets, it's safe for the kids, it runs 24/7, so you don't have to. It's $139 and it comes with a 100-day money-back guarantee and a 2-year warranty, which is longer than half the appliances in my kitchen. Buy the Pestrol Rodent-Free Max today and also receive the in-car rodent repeller absolutely free, and it's valued at $50. It's a limited time offer and you have to use the code word BONA, B-O-N-A. Links are in the show notes.
Doesn't work. I'm sorry, but it does not work.
It's disappointing because radio, to you and me, is a craft. And just because you win or you're a contestant on a reality TV show doesn't make you a radio person. It annoys me. But anyway, I'm not bitter.
No, of course not. No, we're not bitter. We're just old people who are wandering around, still going. You see, because and one of the things that I'm very proud of is the fact that I'll be 80 in March. Okay, and I'm still going reasonably well. I've still got most of the faculties. My greatest fear in life is, losing my brain and losing my marbles. And I talk to 45 people a week on this radio program, different people, mayors all around the western area of the state. You used to do the same thing when you were here, and it keeps you active, it keeps you young, it keeps you going. You just can't give it away. I'll die in the chair. Seriously.
One of the proudest things that I can say when I was at 2BS in Bathurst was working with you on all those appeals. Of course, you anchored them and you got them going. We used to raise money for things like the cancer care cottage. I remember that. And to be honest, you and I built that.
We built that. And every time I talk to people, I actually give you, which it pains me on occasions.
Yes.
But I give you exactly the same kudos as I get for it. I say it wasn't just me that did that. It was myself and Bona, and also Phil Cole too, by the way. He was involved in the background there. So let's give him a bit of a razz up as well. Now, what happened? Can I tell the story on that?
Please, yes, this is your segment.
Okay, what happened there was I was called to a meeting at Charles Sturt University, and I had all these people sitting around, and they said, "Oh, we want to make money. We want to build a cancer care cottage in Bathurst, now called the Daffodil Cottage, and we're going to form a committee, and we're going to do so and so and so."
Yeah.
And I said at that particular meeting, Ron Camplin, the owner of the radio station, has told me to do whatever I want to do to raise the money, and he'll open the radio station to it. I then suggested we have an appeal on Thursday of that week, and I said, and I made a big statement, we will raise the money and build the cottage in one day. And of course, I was howled down for that. They said, no, that won't happen, whatever. And we came in.
Yeah.
I used to be able to tell, actually. I started at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
I used to be able to tell by about 6:30 if it was going to be successful. At 6:30, I was confident that we were going to build the cottage. And then, of course, you came on the air after me. And we continued, till about 2 or 3 o'clock, wasn't it?
Correct.
Something like that. We had built the cancer care cottage in one day.
In one day.
We had over, I think it was close to $200,000 in kind and also money.
And the Christmas Miracle Appeal, which was very, very important. And when my little boy, Jacob, can you believe he's 34 now? But when Jacob was little, we had a trailer, box trailer. And so we used to go, and a Tarago, and we used to go around to our designated area and take these Christmas hampers to people who were in need. And I used to make sure I took Jacob and Katie and Beck with me to help hand out these hampers to show them how the other side lived. And they remember it.
It was an amazing, amazing time. And a lot of this, believe it or not, came out of Mudgee when Ron Camplin bought 2BS from Mudgee. Because I came here in January 1969. January the 6th, in fact, was the time I started in Bathurst. And Ron Camplin bought the radio station because it was owned by Packers back in those days.
Yeah.
And to get anything done, you had to send it in triplicate down to Melbourne. But then Ron Camplin bought the station about October, I think it was, something like that, 69. And from there, the place really took off. It really became a radio station. And he was the sort of guy that was very... Oh, he's still with us. I'm not saying he was the sort of guy, but he gave everybody a chance and was the most passionate radio man I think I've ever met. I would have to. Yeah. I think I'd be right in saying that, wouldn't you?
Oh, without a doubt. And he gave everyone a try. Some worked out, some did. Ron will admit this. The pay was terrible, but the conditions were great, kiddo.
Oh, yeah.
But, Pecky, when I got to 2BS in 84, September, I noticed in the record library, when you had those compactors, that there were 45s there that had Braille on them. And I said, how come some of these records, a lot of them, have Braille on them? You got to work. I missed him. He'd gone by the time I got there, but the records covers still had Braille on them. Tell this story.
Matt Ponsonby was blind. He was probably one of the best jocks that I'd ever heard. And I'm talking now about music jocks and general knowledge of the radio industry, right? And he was just phenomenal. He was absolutely amazing. He used to write all his copy and his weather and stuff in Braille on the Braille machine before he went to air. We used to dictate it to him, right? He'd do that. He had Braille on all the records, so he knew what everything was.
Yeah.
He was the greatest cricket fan you ever came across in all your life.
Yeah.
A football fan. We drove him home on occasions and he would take the rubbish out at night and stuff. Just a remarkable, remarkable man. And started off actually with Pete Graham at 2LT at Lithgow. After we had him, he went to 2LT, then came back to 2BS, and then he went and did voiceover in Sydney.
He did indeed.
And he did a lot of voiceover work in Sydney.
And he sang jingles, Pecky.
Yep. He was really
Matt
very
Ponsonby. You and a group of friends apparently took him to the pub and then you left him in the middle of George Street.
Oh, halfway. He never had any money to buy a shout.
And you left him in the middle of the street. He said, come back, you bastards.
He was such a good bloke. He really was. He was a fabulous guy.
Matt Ponsonby.
You know, there was all those sort of people wandering around, you know, and when you look at some of the great guys on radio, for example, and some of the names, for example, guy you probably never heard of, Tony McLaren. Tony McLaren I worked with at 7LA in Launceston. I was his panel operator. He went to 3UZ in Melbourne as the Midnight to Dawn announcer and finished up at 2UW. And Tony McLaren was probably one of the best jocks I'd ever heard. He really was that good. Music jock I'm talking about now. And he was there in the days of Ward Pally Austin and all those guys, right?
A Ripper Doodley and a Fang Doodley.
McLaren was an avid yachtsman. He lived on a yacht in Sydney Harbour, in fact. And anyhow, tragically, he got a catamaran and 3 of them went to Melbourne and they were lost at sea.
Really?
The yacht was never found and his body was never found either. Some of his friends always reckon that he probably ended up on a desert island and is still sitting there drinking rum today, which would have been McLaren. But, you know, these sort of characters were the guys that really did the hard yards. You know,
yeah.
2UW was a good station at that particular time. 2SM, of course, had the good guys, you know, Ian McRae, Phil Haldeman,
yeah,
you know, Mike Walsh, another big star on 2SM.
And someone else we lost, Ronnie Sparks.
Yep, Ronnie Sparks.
Malcolm T. Elliott.
Malcolm T., all those people, you know. And these were great radio people.
Yeah.
That's missing today, unfortunately.
I'm with you. And it makes me very, very sad. I said this as warts and all. You were at 2BS in Bathurst one morning, I think it was about 8:30, during the 8:30 news. You had a heart attack on air and everyone in the industry talked about it. Back then, your lifestyle wasn't that healthy.
No.
Tell us about the time you had a heart attack on air.
Well, I was sitting here and about 8:15 in the morning, I for some reason, I did everything in reverse. And I didn't feel all that well in that particular morning. And I had what they call a coronary eclipse. So it went through the coronary arteries into the heart. It didn't do a lot of damage at the time, right? You know, I've got a bit of a leaky valve and stuff now, but it didn't do a lot of damage at the time. And they carted me out the front door in an ambulance, you know, yelling, screaming. And so I was saying, I don't want to leave. Don't do that. And I was in hospital for a little while. That was one of the past things that happened. Oh, it's all happened to me, everything.
The boss, Ron Camplin, you told me the whole time you were sick and recovering, you said Ron never missed a pay packet.
Never missed a pay packet. Never. Always looked after me on occasions before I married my beautiful wife, Dixie.
I was going to get to Dixie. I'm going to get to Dixie.
The past was a bit strange, and Camplin always looked after me, always. Because you see, the problem was, Luke, he knew how talented I was. You see, that's a problem.
Well, at least you know how talented you were.
I know, yes.
So Dixie's your second wife. You had an unhappy marriage the first time, but you had 2 beautiful children from that marriage, and you've got 2 beautiful girls from your second marriage. Pecky, you once told me, and you've told me a number of times, that Dixie saved your life.
No doubt.
Explain that.
No doubt. Well, you know, I mean, I was in the middle of at the time a fairly messy divorce type situation. I'd lost a couple of kids. I'd lost a wife. I'd probably lost, well, I suppose, my will to live almost.
You're on the grog.
Yeah, I was drinking myself to death virtually. And I haven't had. By the way, I haven't had a beer for 40-odd years. Haven't touched a drop.
You said that Dixie saved your life. Now, I know Dixie, and I've met her obviously many, many, many times. She is a no-nonsense person.
Oh, God, yes.
She is a no-nonsense person, but she got you together financially and physically and gave you 2 beautiful girls who are now making their mark on the world. You got a second chance, didn't you, mate?
Yep, very much so. Very much so. And I'm very grateful for that second chance too, by the way. And, I probably, if I had continued going like I was going back in those early days, I wouldn't have been here now. I would have been gone now. And I've got reasonably good health at the moment. I've had a couple of scares on a few things, but, generally I'm doing all right. I'm still turning up here at 4:30 in the morning to start the shift and to get myself organised. And as a guy called Mike Carlton said once, of the breakfast program, it's like living with permanent jet lag.
It is, yeah.
Same as midnight to dawn, son.
I actually enjoyed that time at Triple M, Pecky, immensely. The hours were tough, but can I tell you, I was lucky to have 71 transmitters to play with all around Australia, and I found it so much fun.
I've got a thing on at the moment, and this just looking at some of the things that you can do, right? The former coalition government in the state allocated $200 million for the refurbishment of Bathurst Hospital, and that was in 2022, in the budget in 2022. So that money was allocated. Now, the health department have then turned around and said, oh, well, we've got to do impact statements and studies and, all the things you've got to do these days. God. Anyhow, nothing has been done. $200 million from 2022 to today is now probably down to be worth 180 or something, or 170, or whatever it might be. With the help of the local member, Paul Toole, and the mayor, we're on the job now saying, well, okay, where's the money? What's going on? What's happening? This is where radio makes a difference, in the immediacy of radio. In television, if you're going to do it in television, it takes you a while to get it all organised, and you've got to try to talk to somebody, and you've got to edit, you've got to do something. Here, on the air, we can say, radio, this is what's going on, let's have the answers. And the result is we've got a meeting, council, health department saying, okay, tell us what's happening.
Yeah, radio's immediacy is just unbelievable, because I wanted to talk to you about the future of radio, but I can't do that without just going back a little bit, because I was incredibly lucky in 85. And please, you correct me if I get any of this wrong, but it's pretty clear in my memory because it was so significant. You had a lot of radio stations that were either owned or were about to be owned by the big conglomerates. I'm talking about the Hoyts, the Packers, the Alan Bonds, and so on and so forth. And it was announced that the then Labor government was going to auction off FM licences in all throughout regional Australia. And Ron Camplin saw this coming and fought it. He took me and Phil Cole to Canberra with a delegation, and it saved regional radio. And how lucky was I, because I got to speak at a Senate committee. Ron let me. Ron said he knew how passionate I was, because Ron communicated with me how important it was. And I was sort of part of that. Can you believe the owner of a station let a 23-year-old kid do that?
Yes, I can, because that was the way he worked, and continues to work even today.
Do you remember that? Do you remember all that?
Oh, yeah, I remember it very well. And when we date back to that time when you were at 2LF and young, we also had a thing that Ron was calling program sharing, where, some of the programs that come out of 2LF, a majority came out of 2BS at that stage, 2MG, stuff like that. So we shared programs all around our small network, right? And, of course, there was a hell of a holler about it. Oh, what are you going to do? It's the death of radio, blah, 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 blah. Now, of course, the radio industry is absolutely full of it. Everything's satellite from... And I'm very... I've got to say, the organisation I work for at the moment, two things. Bill Corrales was very proud before he passed away, unfortunately, of the fact that in his whole network, during COVID, he never lost one employee. He never had to put one employee off. He hung on to the whole lot. And I think that is a testament to the guy and what he did. We're also, of course, in a situation now where we here at 2BS are pretty unique, because we've got now 8 hours of live program on our radio station Monday to Friday. And now there are not many radio stations in regional areas that have got that amount. They've normally got a breakfast program and the rest is syndicated, right, with all the other guys.
Well, look at where I used to work, Triple M, and I'm not bagging Triple M. I mean, they got rid of their drive program in Adelaide, and it was number one in the market. Now they take on a Melbourne sports program.
You know why? Because there are no program directors. There are no people
Yeah, content director. No, but they all answer to a board, Pecky, and the board's made up of accountants. The boards aren't made up of radio people, Pecky.
And they're destroying the industry. But you've got to tell it like it is.
I was talking to our entertainment bloke, Shane Adam Bassett, recently, and we were talking about the future of free-to-air television because he and I both think the Logies are completely irrelevant. And I only watch free-to-air television for news and for sport. And my kids all listen to podcasting. Yep. They listen to what they want when they want it. The Jacobs Atradi, when he's up a ladder, he's got his headphones on listening to a podcast that he wants to listen to. What do you think the future of free-to-air radio is? Because I think the future of free-to-air TV, when you look at pay TV and streaming services, yes, they cost money, but I think more and more people are choosing to watch what they want when they want.
Yes. The thing that concerns me about it is there is so much choice these days, obviously, but I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't think that there was a future for the local radio station. There still is. But in saying that, it's got to be local, particularly in regional areas.
Absolutely.
It has to be local, and you've got to have the people in the radio station that actually know what's going on locally,
And you've got to have radio people.
Without being overcritical about it, because who am I to be critical? No, but Gold 107, what is it? Gold 101.7 or whatever it is?
I don't know.
From WSFM.
Oh, the 2WS won a survey. They were the number one station in Sydney. What did they do? They changed the branding of a successful product.
Unbelievable.
I couldn't believe it.
Unbelievable.
I couldn't believe it.
I don't know the full story behind Amanda and Jonesy going to afternoons, but you take a reasonably successful breakfast program, but you move it. Hello?
Yeah, but you remember, Pecky, I remember when 2WS opened, because I was at 2GB at the time, and they took on 2SM. WSM, hold it up to a mirror. And even though 2SM back in the Hazelin days of the 70s and Rod Muir and the Digimay programming with the denim zipper, God, they had a 30 share of Sydney. This is before FM. But 2WS opened and targeted Western Suburb Sydney. That's what the WS stood for, and they were immediately successful.
Can I just interrupt you there? Have a look at what's going to happen at WS, Western Sydney, with the new airport and the new transport services that are going out there and the new city that's going out there. They're giving the whole damn thing up. It beggars belief that you can turn around and you can say, nobody knows who it is. Nobody's got a clue. And I tell you what, I was listening to it coming home from the South Coast just recently. Some of the worst radio I've ever heard. I'll probably get sued for that, but it is.
Who was it?
101.7 or whatever they are.
Oh, the new 2WS.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you take a successful brand and I was talking about this about Triple M the other day, Pecky. Such a recognisable logo was Dr. Dan, the guitarist with the wings.
Yep.
They got rid of it. Why?
I've got no idea.
Why?
Yeah. It's decisions that are made in boardrooms and stuff like that.
Do you know what Triple M stands for?
Oh God, I can't remember now.
I'll tell you. Muir's Music Machine.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, well, that'd be right. Yeah, Muir. Yeah, he'd do that. What a great guy. If he's listening to your podcast, g'day, Rod. How are you, son?
Yeah, g'day, Rod. By the way, a good mate of both of ours is Timmy Webster, and he says to say g'day.
Oh, Timmy Webster, 1974. Started here at 109 George in the exact studio that I'm sitting in right now.
And that studio you're in was the one I occupied for some time too.
Yeah.
He's one of the genuine nice guys of radio, is Timmy Webster. I love him. He had a successful television career, and that Sports Tonight show he hosted on Channel 10 was very popular. But he's radio. And in fact, you said the word earlier, wireless.
Yep, on the wireless, yeah. I can still tell you, right, okay? 5 o'clock, Air Adventures of Biggles. 5:15, a program called Dr. Mac. 5:30 was Pacific Patrol. 5:45 was Dad and Dave. 6 o'clock was Here Comes O'Malley. 6:15, right, was various programs. 6:30 news. 7 o'clock, Life with Dexter. There you go. That was the nighttime lineup when I first started in radio.
When I was at 2LF, we had Dad and Dave at 10:10 in the morning. We had Lawsy on tape. Lawsy was on a reel-to-reel tape, and the running sheet was handwritten by his panel operator, Murray, and it was about a week old, but But so you had Lawsy from 9 to 10.
Well, the mail was a bit slow, you know.
And then you had, look, we had a serial, the Castle Ray line.
Yeah.
And we had that and Dave in there as well. You had the CWA half hour, the Country Women's Association. We had Back to the Bible between 10 and 10:30 at night.
Yep.
We had the Hour of Power with Billy Graham. We had Casey Kasem.
American Top 40.
American Top 40. We had Robert W. Morgan, and what was that show he did? There was a music program.
Yeah, because that was the top station in, I think it was San Francisco. It was Don Imus in the morning. Great line, that one, Imus in the morning. Also, of course, there was Robert W. Morgan was on it. Casey Kasem, Wolfman Jack was also on it as well. The Wolfman, yeah, good stuff.
What's next for Pecky? How long you got? Do you think you'll stay in that chair, waking up the central west of New South Wales? You said earlier, while the brain's still going and the voice still works, you'll just stay there. That's what I'd like you to do. Stay there because you love it. You need a reason to get up in the morning and put your feet on the ground.
Yeah, well, that's right. In fact, I'm just talking to them a moment ago. I mean, and you've got to remember also that if the radio stations still want me here, I mean, you never know.
Have you bothered asking them?
With management? Oh, yeah, I've asked them on a couple of occasions. What do you still want me around? God. Yes, I think I'll do 2026. I want to be on my air, and just mark this one down your calendar, by the way. Yeah. March the 11th, I'll be 80 years of age.
March the 11th, all right. I'll come up and I'll do Kelsey and I will record the podcast up there because she drives me like a slave driver with a whip. I
want to be on the air when I'm 80.
I bet, well, you will.
Of course, obviously, I've got to live that long too. And I want to do that. I also want to continue. The hours are brutal. They really are. They're very hard. For a person of my age, you know. Then again, what would I be doing if I wasn't doing this? I'll probably die in the chair. I don't know.
Because I did 9 to 12, I called it the Morning Wireless Program. There's that word again, wireless.
Yep.
And I used to have not just all the politicians come in after 9, but I had colourful characters that would come in for interviewing, visiting.
Yeah, I got half your bloody colourful characters ringing me up now.
Yeah. And so Pecky and I still have this saying, I'd be in there and it'd be 10 to 9 and I'd be on with Pecky saying what's coming up later this morning. And someone strange would come into the foyer and Pecky go, one of yours, Boner.
Yeah.
Or if there's more than one, there's a foyer full of yours, Boner.
A foyer full of yours, yeah. Yeah, tell you what, there was a few of them.
There was a few. We've stayed fairly positive on this chat. There's lots of people we could bag, but what's the point?
Absolutely none. If you're not enjoying it, don't do it. And I tell you what, I still say that to everybody that walks through that door. And there's a whole stack of them just walked through the door a moment ago. I don't know what they're all here for.
A foyer full of mine?
Foyer full of yours. And I tell you what, if you could see them, they are. But I always, seriously, Luke, I always say to people, when you wander through the door, if you're not enjoying it and you're not having fun, don't do it. Because you're not going to make $1 million. There's no way in the world. I mean, there are very few people in this industry that have made $1 million, right? Let's be honest. Okay, you're not going to make that. But I tell you what, if you want a job that you're going to love every moment, and whenever I'm on the air, I still, this day, and you know what I'm talking about here, every time I turn that microphone on in the morning, right, I get a buzz. And I sit there and say, yeah, at least I'm worth something out there, you know?
Yeah, it's showtime. The producer of this podcast is Kelsey Benzies, my stepdaughter. And she worked with you up there in Bathurst for some time. It wasn't a particularly happy time. She learnt a lot, but I know to the day she goes, she will thank you for your friendship and your continuing support. You could see what she was going through. You understood it. So I want to say on behalf of Kelsey too, because she doesn't want to carry on. But Pecky, thank you for looking after her.
That's right. I look after people. I'm just such a wonderful person, you see.
She was producing a program there, and Kelsey used to come into your studio to say what was coming up in the afternoon. Why the hell the presenter of that program didn't bother to get out of bed and come in and do it herself. But anyway, Kelsey did it every day.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, just leave me with that one. That'll be good. Yeah, I'll enjoy that.
It's my podcast.
When are you going to get a job?
Don't want one. I've got one.
Have you?
I've been offered jobs and I've said no to them because they're not the jobs I want. I'm in a position now where I can say no to the job I don't want. That's a good thing.
Right. No, well, I'm just checking up. That's all. You know, I mean, seriously.
This podcast is an earn. It's not. I don't do it for free. There are sponsors, and we love our sponsors.
You're one of the young people of the industry, you see. You've got to take notice senior citizens like me.
No. Every time I read about myself, they say, I'll show you the article. Veteran broadcaster Luke Boner comes back to 2GB. Veteran! Jesus!
Veteran. Well, what's mine, for God's sake? Senior. I'm trying to get a pension, but they won't give me one, so I don't know.
Becky, can you please give my love to Dixie?
Yeah,
and I'll see you on your birthday, March next year.
Can I just say a sign off? Uru, see ya.
Coming up, we're going to meet Lindy, a friend of the White family. She works with the families of homicide victims, and she has some fascinating things to say. You've got to listen to this. That's coming up. Well, we have told you a fair bit about this dreadful, dreadful murder of the grandmother, Vilene White, and the 17-year-old boy with the murder of her on his hands has pleaded guilty and is now committed to sentencing. And we spoke to Victor White about this. We've spoken to Cindy. And somebody who reached out to us that I'd like you to get to know. Her name is Lindy. She has become good friends with Cindy, Vilene White's daughter, Victor's daughter, and has had cuppers with Victor on his couch, she says. A number of chats to Julie and their darling child. Lindy has helped hundreds of Queenslanders get victim assist through their volunteer group. It's called Victims First, and she works closely with the government. She's reached out to us because she's watched how this family has struggled and, in her words, somehow coped through this great trauma and adversity. And she's on the line right now. Nice to meet you, Lindy Atkinson. Welcome to the Bonafide podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on, Luke.
Yeah, I feel pretty close to this because shortly after it happened, Victor rang me on the radio because, as you know, he's completely blind, but he struggles to sleep. God, I can understand why. So he rang me and we've become friends. I don't know how he and his family and how that 6-year-old granddaughter are going to cope with all of this. Tell me about your volunteer group, Victims First, and your association with Victor White and his family.
Look, we're a volunteer movement based in Brisbane, helping Queensland victims of violent crime. As you would probably know, have you ever encountered a family leading a blissful life one moment and having their lives turned upside down forever in an instant by a violent crime? Well, the White family, they're certainly one of those. We've become very close with the White family. Cindy and I talk just about every day. And, of course, I didn't know them prior to February last year. How they have circumnavigated or attempting to circumnavigate this dreadful traumatic incident, particularly with the little, at the time, 6-year-old witnessing it. I just don't know, but my heart goes out to them. I think they're a very resilient family. With Victor being blind, just imagine losing your wife, who was your caregiver, and then you're left with nothing at the hands of a then 17-year-old youth who took it upon himself to murder somebody. So, and the sentencing, of course, is happening on the 12th of November. But, what Victims First does first and foremost, we reach out to these people who have nowhere to turn to. They'll have a violent crime, whether it's going to be part of a stabbing, death in a motor vehicle accident due to a criminal activity, or whether they've had a few cars stolen and their lives are turned upside down. And so we assist them as well. What we're finding is that we give the victims the strength, to get up and know that they're not alone. Because when it happens, they just don't know what to do. We get onto them straight away. Of course, most of them have insurance and they get their locks changed and their neighbours or relatives will make meals. That's terrific. But a lot of people do not know about the government department Victim Assist. Police do give them referrals. They pass on a referral of a violent crime to Victim Assist. But unfortunately, it can sit in their system for some weeks. And if we hear about it through a crime page or a reporter gets in touch with us, we reach out to these people straight away, take a statement and escalate it to Victim Assist and assist them in that way so that they can get the assistance they need, whether it be a financial assistance, security cameras, and most importantly is what most people need immediately is counselling.
Absolutely.
Once it gets to, if there's going to be a court case, and so many of these are unfortunately, they are ending up in the courts, we liaise with QPS and get the dates of the mentions. We will go and support these victims in court, whether it's the magistrates or the district court. If they just can't bear to go and face the offender, we will go in their place. If you go to the children's court, let's just concentrate just for a second on youth crime. If you go to the children's court on any given day, there would be up to 15 people from youth justice supporting the offender. How many people do you think, Luke, are there supporting the victims?
I wouldn't know where to start. Are you serious? None.
No. George, my husband and I, started going to these, and we have done, for the last 12 months now. And just the other day in the magistrates' court, a judge, this is in the children's court in Brisbane, in the magistrates' court, I think the police prosecutor knew that we were coming to support this particular victim who was too ill to attend.
Yes.
We'd given them the heads up that we were going to be there. The police prosecutor very kindly told the magistrate, and as soon as we walked in, the magistrate said, "And who are you two?" So we stood up and we said, "Look, we're George and Lindy Atkinson, and we're here to support the victim that we are about to discuss now."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all right. Okay. It was just like, wow.
We didn't even know. And you told the police.
It was a shock that somebody was there to support the victims when there might have been 10 people in the court supporting the offender. Interesting, isn't it?
It's shocking. Because this teenager who can't be named has now pleaded guilty to murder, and not second-degree murder, and not manslaughter or involuntary manslaughter, but guilty to murder. Do you think that was a relief to the White family, saving them going through a trial and reenacting all of that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure it meant a lot to them. And, I think Julie White spoke so beautifully that day to the press. It was really outstanding.
She was outstanding, wasn't it? We've spoken to her on this podcast.
Yes, I've heard it. I think the real grieving, Luke, starts after the 12th of November when the sentencing is over. We're all terribly nervous, of course, of the outcome.
What sort of sentence would you and the family be happy with? Happy's the wrong word.
Well,
happy's the wrong word, but
in my way of thinking, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, it's particularly heinous. He didn't have to kill her. No. He had the car keys. He wanted the car.
And a 6-year-old granddaughter standing next to her.
How do you think she's going to be going for the rest of her life? My heart goes out to her, and she's just the sweetest little thing. I think that the thing is too that particularly heinous, it's the old, laws, of course. I think the maximum is 14 years at this point in time. And I just hope that that's what he gets, but not at 50, 60, 70%, because this is particularly heinous. And I think he should get the whole lot. But look, we can't work towards that because too many precedents have been set, unfortunately, which haven't reached that. But we can only hope. And, of course, with the Emma Lovell case, the defendant's appeal on Friday, that was disappointing that the appeal judges decided to drop, two out of the three decided to drop it from 70% of 14 years down to 60%, which means it's a year less. And I think he's now going to be serving from here on in another 7 years. He'll be out at 26, leading his best life.
Leading his life. Has he shown, to your knowledge, any remorse?
Not to my knowledge, not at all, because I have been in the court when he has been in the dock. He certainly wasn't present at the appeal the other day because that's the sentence is over. But no, he hasn't shown remorse. I can't say I have seen any particular remorse from Vylene's killer either. Just takes your breath away where we're heading.
Folks, let me tell you why I don't go into winter without power pollen. We all know how run down you can feel at this time of the year. Low energy, colds, and you just feel, Well, power pollen's been in my routine for over 20 years. And you want to know why? It works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. But it works. It's not just bee pollen. Nature Bee has this special process that makes it absorbable. It's called potentiation. Look it up. It means your body gets all that good stuff fast, more energy, better immunity, and a real lift when your battery's running low. So if you're staring down another long, cold season, give your body the fuel it needs. Do what I do. Head to the link in the show notes and grab yours today. Money back guarantee. It just beggars belief, and how you get over this is amazing. And I don't know whether you know this or not, but last Sunday morning I was on Channel 7 Sunrise. One of the topics we talked about was Danny Abdallah. He is the father who lost 3 of his children. They were run down by a drunken, drug-affected driver.
Yes, in Sydney.
And last Sunday night on Spotlight on Channel 7, it's the most riveting thing you've ever seen. He actually comes face to face with the man who killed them. Now, this bloke's son, Anthony, 13, daughters, Angelina, 12, Sienna, 8, and their cousin, Veronica Sakia, 11, were killed 5 years ago. An out-of-control ute mounted the footpath in Sydney's west. The bloke was Samuel William Davidson. He was behind the wheel at the time of the crash. He was under the influence of drugs and alcohol. He was initially sentenced to 28 years jail back in 2021 after pleading guilty to 4 counts, but to 4 counts of manslaughter. Now, he chose to get behind the wheel in that state, but it was manslaughter. He was given a non-parole period of 21 years. It was reduced to 15 years, and the country's been up in arms. But this father, Danny Abdallah, has forgiven him.
How tough is that?
Forgiven him. It's changed he and his whole family's life forever. His kids will never come back. But he's actually chosen to forgive him because he showed remorse. This bloke, Samuel William Davidson, has shown remorse. How do you do that?
Oh, look, I think
he's a better man than me.
More than likely myself. They are a religious family, as the Whites. Vilene White was a very religious person, and Julie and Cindy are determined that they need to go along those similar lines, that everybody needs a fair chance, and they didn't want any racism coming into any of this, and they certainly made that very clear. I don't know how anybody can do that. I really don't, coming face to face with them like that and forgiving them. Is it a way of healing? I'm not a psychologist, but nor am I a lawyer. But is it a way that it is a healing factor for them if they feel that they can face them and forgive them? But, wow, I see these criminals nearly on a daily basis.
Do you?
Because we go to court sometimes 3 times a week. This week we've got 3, Beenleigh and Bow Desert. And I can see the trauma that these offenders, shall we call them offenders, cause the families. And it's just not momentarily, it's forever. Their lives are upturned forever. And as I said, it's not just necessarily if it's due to death, or even if they've just stolen your 4 cars while you were sleeping and violated your safe place. You're still affected. You can't sleep. I know people sleeping with baseball bats next to their beds, elderly are locking all their precious belongings in their bedrooms. I actually don't personally go along with that. I think they should be in a place that's visible so that they can, if that's what they're after, they can take it and go. It's not the society that I was brought up in, and it's certainly not one that I'm embracing at all at the moment, and something absolutely needs to change. Look, I will say, though, that the ACAT, the adult time laws, are going to make a difference. I think sentencing has virtually started for that just recently, because obviously they were passed in December and then again in February. Most of the charges have doubled. Say for murder, it was 10 years. It's now life, which is 20. Acts intended to cause grievous bodily harm was 10. And if it's particularly heinous, it's life. If it's excessively speeding and causes death or grievous bodily harm, that was 7. That was 7 years in the old rulings. It's now 20. Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
But the sentence might be 20, but if they get 20, that's often another thing.
Look, the magistrates and the judges now have the tools. I wish they'd use them.
Couldn't agree with you more. I wanted to talk to you about a bloke we're hoping to get on the Bonafide podcast soon. That's the Liberal Party MP in Victoria, David Limbrick. who has brought a proposal for law reform into the Parliament last week. He wants a change in the self-defence laws because of the rise in home invasions. And, of course, this is a long way from Vilene White because she was completely defenceless. It was broad daylight, a 6-year-old granddaughter standing next to her, and she handed over the keys to her car happily. So it's a long way from that. However, you did mention a reform in the laws and people arming themselves with weapons at home because they feel unsafe. I know you're across all this, and this is Victoria, and I bet the rest of Australia will be looking at this very carefully. What are your thoughts on this proposal?
Look, I think that you have every right to protect what is yours. If there's somebody coming towards you with a weapon, I think you've got every right to be able to defend your home, your children, your wife, your husband. You have to go to the lengths that are suitable to you at the time.
But those laws have always been in place so long as the retaliation was proportionate. Let's say it's 2:00 in the morning and you hear a noise and you've got your kids in their bedrooms, you've got your wife next to you, and you pick up a baseball bat because there are home invasions going on all around you. And you are confronted by somebody in your house at 2:00 in the morning. Your adrenaline then goes peak. Your only thought is protecting your family, and you overreact and club someone over the head with a baseball bat. You could go to jail. Now, you talk about proportionate retaliation. When you are confronted like that, how do you know what proportionate is? You don't know if they've got a gun. You don't know if they've got a knife. All you know is someone is in your home threatening you and your family is vulnerable and your instinct is to protect them. What is the meaning of the word proportionate in that instance?
Well, it certainly needs to be explained far more than what it is because, you're woken from a sleep to start with. Your eyes aren't properly open and you're looking at somebody who's got a knife in their hand and perhaps if you've got your baseball bat in yours, I think the instinct, of course, is to protect yourself and to try and maybe even pick the knife out of their hand. Perhaps you do that. I don't know. I hope I'm never confronted with anything like that. And I really feel for the people who are confronted with something like that and what do they do and what is proportionate. I know the Katter Party, they're really in Queensland, they're trying to bring in Castle's Law, and I know that there are a lot of people who have signed a petition. I think there are 40,000 people who have signed a petition going along with that. And I can understand why they are doing that because you do have every right. How dare somebody come in and violate your safe place for the sake of a car that they're going to take and they're going to leave at the end of the road, round the corner, or drive it to the Gold Coast until it's spiked. They're not selling it. They're not gaining any money out of it. They're doing it for their kicks. And I think we need to look at child safety and why are these kids at age 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 doing this. It's just extraordinary.
We're talking with Lindy Atkinson, who reached out to us here at Bonafide because she is very close to the White family. Do you think social media platforms need to be held more accountable if they allow you say they're not going to sell the car, they don't want the car, they're in there for a joyride, but part of getting their jollies off is they then film themselves and post it on social media, and that's the hook for them. That's their applause. If a social media platform allows that to be posted, shouldn't there be repercussions?
Absolutely there should, and there should be laws everywhere in Australia that forbids that. That's where they get their joy from, and it encourages them.
That's their reward.
That's their reward. And look, I understand that a lot of these kids suffer from fetal alcohol syndrome and they've had terrible upbringings. You know something? I'm sick of hearing it. Sick and tired of hearing it.
Me too.
They're using it to judges and magistrates are using this not as an excuse, a reason that they're behaving like this. For another child in a similar situation who might have had a terrible upbringing, brought up with domestic violence and alcohol-fueled parents, whatever, for them to see that on social media, if they do have some sort of cognitive impairment, it's wow, I'll try that. And it should be banned.
And their lawyers are coaching them into doing that, which just drives me mad. Do you think, Lindy Atkinson, that the judiciary needs to be held more accountable?
Look, I think they absolutely do. I think, everybody has KPIs these days, right? I have no idea what the KPI situation is with the judiciary, but I would applaud any government in Australia, whether it's state or federal. And I know, the judges in each state, it's a state thing. They really need to be looking at the judges. I don't know if they need to have a better understanding. Look, I think they do have their heads around the new ACAT laws. I appreciate that.
Yep.
As far as everything else goes, I have sat in court thinking, what is this judge? What is he going to say? Usually I'm very disappointed with the outcomes. That's all I can probably say. So I would love them to be more accountable for their decisions. A lot of people are saying, well, nothing has clearly happened in their house where they've had a series of stolen cars, let alone a stabbing, let alone a death in the family due to an alleged criminal. I don't know if that is the case, but there are certainly a lot of people saying that, not in their backyard. Well, and leading as I keep saying, leading a blissful life one moment and having it upturned in an instant forever. I just wish that it would be at least an equal playing field with the offender and the victim, because at the moment it's always been for the offender, and I really feel that not a lot has changed. And I really implore the governments to have a look and, make assessments perhaps on the judiciary.
Yeah, because this is only my opinion, but I think the other part of the problem, huge part of the problem, is there's no consequences for repeat offenders. I mean, you've got people, the rotating door of a courthouse, where people are committing serious adult crimes whilst on bail after appearing before a magistrate or a judge 7 or 8 or 9 times.
Yes, well, look, I think the most outspoken person in Queensland on changing the bail laws would be Victor White, as you have probably gathered.
Yep.
I'm sure they will eventually be looking at that, because it is a very important feature that so many are out on bail. I've spoken to a few police who are just so deflated. They will catch some, little 13-year-old females who have assaulted people, and I'm talking a number of people, and they see them in the rotisserie. They're in and out in an instant. They're out on bail, virtually ready to do it again. They break their curfews, and they don't live with their parents, don't live where they're supposed to be.
They don't give a shit because there's no consequences.
There's no consequences for their actions. And I know of a few of these cases down at the Gold Coast, and I've attended the court cases there, and it's absolutely heartbreaking for the victims who do not attend because they just don't want to, because their children have been badly affected by them, or an adult has been affected by the assaults. And it is something that needs to certainly be looked at, the bail. But the other thing is too, Luke, are judges and magistrates giving bail for ones where they think that they could be assisted with under a supervisory order instead of being bailed? But where do they go in jail? They're full. And I know that there's the new detention centre in Wacol, where I know the LNP are ensuring that these juveniles are going to have education, because prior to that, it wasn't mandatory. They didn't have to attend the school within the detention centre, but now they do have to, which is positive.
Maybe governments, not just Queensland, because Crucifili has promised this, and the funding's yet to come, but maybe give funding to organisations that get results. For example, Bob Davis, who runs Hard Yakka, and I'm good mates with Bob, and we've spoken to him many times. He gets 96% success rate. So fund these places and send them there. And
yes, absolutely.
And because he's getting success. How do people find victims first?
They can just go onto our website.
Easy as that.
Victims1st. Yep, Victims1st .com.au.
Can I just say thank you so much that you're there and for your energy, your compassion and your loyalty and your real sense of trying to make a difference. You are an absolute star, Lindy Atkinson.
Look, thank you. And look, my husband, George, he was in this volunteer movement with me. And look, we do work 6-hour days as a volunteer. And I know the government is very appreciative of what we do. And it's all about helping victims. And that's what we will continue to do because they're most important. And they really do appreciate the assistance that they can get, and they deserve it. Because I tell you what, I'd hate to be a victim.
Lindy, if there's anything we can do here at the Bonafide podcast that helps you in any way, can you please lean on us? Because plenty of people are leaning on you and you need some help.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time and such kind words. Thank you very much, Luke.
Next up, Rod Hannafy and Truckee Tuesday. Time to get behind the wheel of either a bonneted or non-bonneted truck. I'm not sure. I think we're talking non-bonneted today with Rocket Rod Hannafy. Good morning to you, brother.
Good morning, mate. A COE, cab over engine.
Cab over engine. And we've discussed all that. You'd rather have a bonneted truck. Most truckies would. They ride better, they're safer, and if they need repairing, you can stay in the truck cabin while the mechanic weaves his magic, correct?
Correct.
And you've got a big engine there protecting your legs.
Been some terrible crashes. I see one the other day. A bloke was in a cab over and the load moved forward, came straight through, so that wasn't a good outcome for him.
Tell us about that. I read about that.
Yeah, look, from what I saw, there was 2 or 3 trucks crashed together, and the second one went into the rear of the first, and whilst the truck obviously stopped when it impacted the truck in front, the load did not. The load moved forward on the trailer, impacted the back of the cab and squashed it, and I believe that was the driver that died. There's some horrific photos you might see from overseas, Luke, of things like that where the cabin, particularly where you've got a small cab, mine's a big cab, so it's got a little bit more room in it, but where you've got just the bunk and that at the front, or even those without a bunk at all, and you've virtually got just the driving space, there's not a lot there to squash. And if the load's not properly secured and you come to a sudden halt, yes, bits of steel and things like that have gone through the back of cabs, and not a very good outcome.
Terrible stuff. So have we got to address the way these trucks are designed then?
Look, in America, I'm sure I said to you, mate, at one stage, JB Hunt is a very large company over there. And when we talk about large companies in Australia, you talk about Linfox and Finamores and people that have 300 and 400 trucks. In America, if you've got 300 or 400 trucks, you're a family company. We're talking over there about trucks, companies that have 5,000 and 10,000 trucks across the whole of America. And JB Hunt was going to order 1,000 cab overs, and their drivers said, well, if you order them, we won't be driving them. So they cancelled it and they went and ordered bonneted trucks for the reasons we've discussed. There are a few cab overs running in America. There's the few odd ones around. There's some old ones that have been done up, but generally, because their length laws there apply only to the trailer, whereas ours in Australia apply to the whole combination, the truck and the trailer, they can have virtually a house on the back with a shower and a lounge room, and most states in America allow that. There's a couple that are a little bit more restrictive, but they have bonneted trucks. They are more comfortable. They don't rely so much on the truck stops, and we're having that problem here where the facilities there are disappearing and the food's not there. But yes, the drivers had enough power there to do it, but we can't here because of our length laws. And we've asked, mate, we've said, why can't we follow that American thing? We follow a lot of things from America. Why not that one? But the authorities have said, no, they'll get too big and you won't get round the corner. And I think it's a fight we're still going to have for many years.
Rod, the topic of electric trucks and hydrogen-powered trucks continues. If this technology improves and it actually works, will that mean you'll be able to go further distances without having to fuel up? And will that make trucking and transportation more efficient?
No, it won't. At the current rate, that cars are generally, let's say, 400 to 500 kilometres on their batteries. That's my understanding, and we hope that will increase over time. but the car is generally heavier than normal. So let's say it's 2 tonne, just for a simple ease of operation. Now, a prime mover at the moment weighs 12. Then you go and put a couple of tonne of batteries in it. There's 14. They are already going to allow heavier weights for electric trucks. But if I'm in a normal truck, I can't drive at that weight. They're going to knock me off and fine me severely, but they're going to let heavier trucks do that. And it's the weight of the truck on the road. And the more of them there are, the more impact there is on the road.
Yeah.
So unless they come up with hydrogen, and we have hydrogen fueling stations, currently my truck carries about 1,500 litres, does vary. We had a couple that had 2,000 litres previously, so you could run to Perth and back. There's even trucks, Luke, that have what's called a belly tank.
Yeah.
So they have a big fuel tank underneath the trailer to run to Darwin or to Perth or whatever it is. Electric isn't going to catch that for a long, long time. Hydrogen might.
So they're trucks that kind of have the Bathurst 1000 drop tank. Remember the drop tank?
I had an XU1 years ago, mate. I had a LJ GTR, mate, and I put an XU1 fuel tank in it, and I was at a servo one day, and the bloke was watching me, and he's watching the gauge going round and round, and he said, "Are you filling the boot with that thing or what?" Because, of course, those days, a 17-gallon tank in a little Tirana was pretty unusual.
I was down at our local service station some years ago, and a beautifully done-up XU1 Tirana had pulled up to fuel up, and it was idling. It was rocking. And I said, "What's under that bonnet?" And he had a 308 in it, which is what the Harry Firth actually experimented with. But it had all sorts of handling problems. It wasn't, the XU1 Tirana wasn't meant to have that much weight up the front, and it suffered terribly from understeer or oversteer or something. And the chassis wasn't quite built for it. But it was an idea. Hey, listen, we're going to move on. We've got some people to talk to this morning, but before we get to them, we got this message from Matt, and it reads, "I just pulled up for the night, and this is what I was met with in the truck parking." We've shown you the photos, and Kelsey will put them on our Facebook page. It shows a caravan in a truck stop. In fact, there's a motorhome and a caravan, it looks like. And there was another one as I drove in, several cars to my right. I didn't get a photo of them. I parked in the car park. I was grateful to be in a single semi. But he says it's a major issue. You've seen the photos?
I have, mate. I have. Not the first time I've seen similar things. And the only good thing in that regard, as you say, the caravan then parked with a motorhome. So they only took up one bay. Generally, it's worse. Generally, they park singly in each bay along. They won't share one. We do still have problems occasionally, even with truck drivers in little rigids that will park in a whole bay and take them up on their own. And in the service centres, where we have to use those facilities because we don't have access to any others, if you can't get a park in your truck, if you're out of hours, if you need the toilet, all of those things mean that you get in that position where you either park where you can if you're lucky, and he said he parked in the car park, and there's just not the facilities, Luke, and it's been a long and arduous fight, but I haven't given up, but I certainly haven't bloody made as many inroads into it as I like, and the only thing you can do, you can nicely. It's no good going over and abusing the Christ out of the site manager because he didn't park the caravans there. He didn't design the place. But you can say, "Mate, I'd just like to make you aware that the caravanners are taking up our spots. The only thing we can do is put a little bit of pressure on management to go do something more about it, build them better, give us more room."
Yeah.
But there's little else we can really do.
Yeah, frustrating. I can see it, but that photograph depicts it brilliantly. You can see these photos on our Facebook page, Luke Boner, that radio guy. Rod, Big Rig Online had a very interesting article on the NHVR, and they asked the question, what can NHVR officers do and what can't they do? The article goes on to say it's helpful to understand what you are lawfully required to do and what you must answer if a National Heavy Vehicle Regulator compliance officer interacts with you on the roadside. You've seen the article. Can you elaborate?
Mate, I actually haven't seen it. I only saw the headline. I didn't get to read it. And, of course, the other part of it is it does compare what the NHVR officer can do with what a police officer can do.
Okay, well, I'll just tell you a little bit here. It says there's an important difference between what police officers can do and what the NHVR officers can do. And the article basically, Rod, focuses on what the NHVR officers may or may not do.
Yes. And, look, we have to be compliant too. Now, I did go and spend some time. Our local pads are at Brocklehurst. And I rang at one stage. They were having a big operation. Now, this was then still RTA, so it was New South Wales controlled, but they were the road transport officers, which is what NHVR are. I rang them up and I said, is there any chance I can come out and do a bit of a story on what you're doing? The head bloke said, give me half an hour, I'll ring you back. Ring me back. And he said, yes. He said, there's 3 rules. He said, you will be escorted at all times. If you do anything wrong, you'll be asked to leave. And we'll be sort of watching what you do. It's up to you. I said, no worries at all, mate. So I went out there, spoke to a couple of drivers. In the end, they just let me wander out, talk to anybody. Now, there was a driver there who had been fined and had his truck grounded at the time for not being registered. It was actually registered. They had to go and get the details because this was early in the morning. And they operated fairly and treated us nicely. And one of the blokes I spoke with said, the first words out of your mouth often, like any interaction, Luke, control what's going to happen. So if you jump out of the truck when they pull you up and say, you bastards shouldn't be here and leave me alone and picking on us poor truckies, well, then what's going to happen? If you get out and
his
say...
his back will be up immediately.
That's right. And you don't know whether the last truckie there was a nice bloke or the last truckie gave him a mouthful, so he's already got it, as you say, he's already got his back up. So you get out and say, good morning, mate, how's it going? What's going on? What's the problem? Or is there any problem? And you speak to them reasonably. I honestly believe that 9 times out of 10 you will get a better outcome than if you launch out. No matter how cranky you are,
you get more bees with honey, is the old saying.
That's the one, instead of vinegar.
Instead of vinegar. So what power does an NHVR officer have?
Mate, I've got to look at that and see what I understand because, even in the days of police, they were able to put a dog in your truck if they were doing a drug search. And people used to complain about that. There's a whole lot of intricacies and there's a lot of truck stop lawyers who know what the law is or think they know what it is. There are blokes who have a really solid knowledge of the law and what you can and can't be made to do. So I'll do that as homework. I'll have a look, I'll compare it, and I will come back with that one for next week.
Okie dokie. Big Rig was also running an article on the proposed licensing scheme for operators and supply chain partners. Last month's column, it says, they certainly fanned the flames of those who agree or disagree with a road freight licensing system. They were saying it was a humbling experience to receive so many calls and emails from people who had constructive comments, feedback and support. Your thoughts on the proposed licensing scheme for operators and supply chain partners?
It's been brought up for many, many years. And the concern is you either make it so hard for people to enter. So at the moment, Luke, you could go and buy a truck tomorrow, put a sign on the door and start ringing people up, say, I want to cart your freight, and away you go. You've got a transport company. Now, you may or may not have knowledge of business. You may know what your costs are. You may be capable of driving and loading. You may not have a clue about any of those things, but you can start a transport company. So that's the base at the moment. And people get in, they don't understand their costs, they don't know what they should be charging, they undercut other people to get the work to start, and it starts that race to the bottom. The idea of a licensing system says that you must have a base number of things. It might be a good company record, it might be a business course, it might be whatever things. And that's where all that discussion goes around as to what that licensing would require. And you would have to have that before you started a transport company. So we either prevent people having a go or we make it that there's a certain level of knowledge and experience before you go out and start undercutting people to get work.
Okay. We'd love your feedback. LukeBonerRadioGuy@gmail.com. Send us a voice message and you can talk to Rod via this podcast because we love all of your suggestions. Rod, we got a message about Caden. Dear Luke, I know this may be a long stretch, but I called onto your show some time ago. I was the kid that was riding in the truck with his dad at the time. I hope this reaches out to you, but I just wanted to give you an update on how my truck life journey has been. I've started my diesel mechanic apprenticeship working on trucks and soon to obtain the truck license I've dreamt of getting. Caden's online. G'day, Caden.
Hey guys, how are we?
I'm good. Rod.
Mate, so good to hear from you. I do remember that night. It's those little things that you remember that sort of prick your ears and keep your conscience going. It's good to see that you're following the dream. And, of course, a lot of truckie fathers have said to their kids, you go and get a education first, and diesel mechanic is one of those popular ones because, of course, then you get to fix your own truck as you go along. So you've started that, mate. I hope that's going well. Where are you going? You're doing, what is it, 4 years for a diesel apprenticeship?
Yeah, so you do your 4 years from start to finish. It's about 3 years of theory involved with the prac, and then you do another year of prac on top of that, and that usually sets you up. Set 3 heavy diesel commercial for trucks, and that pretty much means you can work on anything from trucks to anything, really.
Yes. So how far are you into that, mate?
I'm almost finished my first year now. I did a Cert 2 in car mechanics through a little place called the Hunter Trade College. That sort of delayed the start on the truck side of things, but now I'm well and truly into the truck first year of the apprenticeship.
Okay, and you're about to go for your first truck license. So
in the next, give myself a bit of a stretch here, 10 years. The long-term goal would be interstate, because obviously working on trucks your whole life isn't great for the body. And, I mean, truck driving's by no means an easy feat, but it's definitely something I'd rather get to within the next 10 years. So it's hard to say. That's pretty much it, just interstate.
And that's the trouble, some people come in now and want to be in a 600 horsepower big jigger with all the lights and bells and whistles on it the first week, and if they don't get one, they're not happy. And obviously, there may be something happen along the line where you get to sort of jump up a little bit. But I certainly wish you all the best of success, mate. And it's really good that A, that you rang us before, and B, that you're following that path, mate. And I hope you're still listening and keeping tabs on us.
I tried to. I'm on. Funny thing, I'm on the afternoon shift, but it usually leads into the morning. Every Tuesday morning, I might turn on the radio or turn on Spotify and listen in a bit.
Well, we go 24/7. You can turn our podcast on any time of the day. That's the beauty of podcasting.
Exactly. A lot of my colleagues, I don't think, like the idea of truck driving. A lot of them have seen it from a maybe not the same perspective that you and I might have, Rod. Whilst they just think it's a long slog of hours and that's it. And you don't really get anything out of it. But if you look at it in the right way, every job has its pros and cons and stuff like that. While you might be losing out on time with certain people, if you don't really have those people to hang out with, you can be a truck driver and travel Australia, make heaps of money, and you're not spending anything at the same time. And you set yourself up pretty well. But a lot of them have seen it from a...
Yeah, it is nearly a young single man's job, because once you get a family, it's certainly harder, and it certainly puts that weight on you. And Luke, I did hear, I talked to a bloke, ring around at Christmas, talked to some mates, and I rang a bloke, and he'd been out of the industry 10 years, and he said he still carried the guilt from the times that he wasn't there. So, Caden, mate, I certainly wish you all the best.
Give us a call a few months down the track. Send us messages and we'll keep an eye on you, okay? Rod, is there any parting advice you'd like to give Caden?
Mate, I suppose probably 2 things. Don't be afraid to ask. Most truckies are more than happy to help others. So don't be afraid to ask. If there's something you're not sure of, seek somebody's advice and take your time. Don't rush into anything and don't rush on the road, because every time you do, you'll generally, it won't get the best outcome. And certainly if you, like anything, mate, to do with mechanical things, if you do it smoothly and you do it gently, it's going to last longer and it's going to treat you better. And, of course, you'll have that background from being a mechanic as well.
Thank you, Rod. I appreciate that.
Good on you, Caden. And Caden, in his message, said that he found you an inspiration, Rod. So there you are.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your Saturday.
Rod, online we've got Kate, and she sent us a message. She said, would love the chance to talk with you and Rod on Truckee Tuesday. I drive a semi between Brisbane and Townsville for Vulcan Steel, hauling engineering and stainless steel, clocking 60 hours a week. My dad has been trucking for over 45 years. So I was raised old school in the passenger seat. She's online now. Kate, g'day. Where are you right now?
I'm just on my way to work at the moment, just going in to give my truck a wash because we've got the Convoy for Kids on in Mackay tomorrow. So
what's that about?
Charity event that they run every year, have as many trucks as possible, doing a convoy from Serena to Mackay, ending up at the Mackay Showgrounds for variety.
Good on you. How much do you hope to raise?
It's only my first year doing it. I know that it's quite a big event here. I'm not too sure how much money they normally raise, but yeah, they do. They hold them all around around the country. There was one up in Townsville a couple of months ago. Yeah, they hold them all over the place.
An experience for you. Let us know how it goes when we talk to you maybe down the track, okay?
How's the weather going for it?
Yeah, no, it should be a really good day. Our company, we don't have a lot of trucks. I'll be the only one on the road for Vulcan tomorrow, but we're hoping to grow it in years to come. We do have a couple of local trucks that run in Mackay, so it should be a good first year to see how things play out. But yeah, looking forward to it.
You said in your message your dad had been trucking for over 45 years and you were raised old school.
Well, what did your dad do roughly, mate? You spent time in the passenger seat. Good that you've come up through the industry that way. And
yeah, so he's done a little bit of everything. So my earliest photos with him, there's one of me when I am literally just a baby. He's worked for UTO. The one where I probably have the earliest memories of actually being in the truck, he used to work for W&M way back. I would have been probably about 5 years old. He used to run meat from Mackay to Townsville for Woolies every day. We'd stop in Proserpine, Bowen, Ayr, and then Townsville, turn around, come home. That was his daily run. One of my earliest memories would be being led around the Woolies store by the manager at the time. I'd jump out of the truck when we were in Bowen and she'd take me around and let me grab a couple of things off the shelf. And whenever I'd walk back out to the loading dock, Dad would be like, "Where did you get all of that?" And she'd go, no, it's all good. Like, no, she's lovely. Don't you dare get up her. She can have her grapes and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, he's done a bit of everything. Hauled fuel for UTO, done general freight. He worked for, BM Webb in Townsville for quite a few years and has gone back a couple of times as well to work for him. He bought his own trucks back in 2007. I think we bought our first one. At one time, he had 3 semis on the road. They were working for Maclease and Kalari. And we also had a couple of pilot vehicles and MR truck doing specials out to the mines. Got out of that game a few years ago now, started working in town. He actually rolled a set of trailers in the Territory a few years ago, and that gave him enough of a scare to get off the road for a bit and to pack it in. And yeah, he's finishing out his career at the moment working for Emerald Carriers. 7 on, 7 off out of Mackay out to German Creek. And he loves it. He was meant to retire. I think he's put a retirement date in about 4 times now in the last 2 years and just doesn't end up giving it up. So, yeah, he's just about to pull up for good, but yeah, still going at the moment and still loves it. So
W&M was Wynnum and Manly transport. We used to have their trucks. When I was a boy, I worked at Fridgemobile, knew them from down there, and then they used to bring containers in years ago. And there is a Facebook page, Old W&M Drivers. So if he doesn't know about that, that's something of interest. So very quickly, mate, as I say, what's the best part of the job and what's the worst part for you?
For me, the best part would probably be just the freedom, being in control as much as you can, obviously, of my own day. Just doing my own thing. Obviously, I've got a schedule to keep. On a Monday morning, I leave Mackay around 2:00 in the morning to head down to Brisbane. I get in sometime in the afternoon, pull up for the night, and then Tuesday load in Cresmead and Carroll Park, and then turn around and get as far back up the road as I can. Get back into Mackay Wednesday, unload, reload, head into Townsville on Thursday, get back Thursday afternoon, and then I have a day on a Friday to load up the truck, wash the truck, do those sorts of things on a Friday. So, like, it's a pretty strict schedule that I have to keep. But in the same token, what I do love about it is I can do what I want with that time as long as I keep to that schedule. So I can listen to my own music, my podcasts. I can pull up when I want. If I don't feel like driving for an hour because I've just in a crappy spot when it comes to traffic where there just seems to always be people around me, I pull up for half an hour, just wait it out a little bit, then jump back on. The company's really good in that token where I sort of sort myself out a lot of the time.
And the bad part? What's the worst?
Worst, probably a bit of the same thing, is the schedule and
the best is the worst and the worst is the best.
Yeah, pretty much.
60,
so
you said in your message.
like
You said in your message you're clocking up 60 hours a week. That's a big week, isn't it, Rod?
Mate, it is. Of course, years ago, owner-drivers worked often 100 hours a week, and that's how they survived. You can't do that now, and it's a better thing that we have more control and you can't be pushed, but it certainly makes a big week out of it. It's good that they look after you. So, mate, have you got anybody to help you clean the truck for the convoy, or have you got to do it all on your own, and what sort of truck do you drive?
No, so I pretty much going to be by myself today. Hopefully my partner, who also works for Vulcan, he's going to come in a little later, I hope, to give me a hand. I was meant to get the truck wash started yesterday, but we've got a bit going on stock movement wise. So the loading process took a little longer than expected yesterday. I've got about 21 tonne heading down to Brisbane next week in a whole mix of different stuff. So it took a little longer. So, yeah, he's hopefully going to come in sometime today and give me a bit of a hand. But, yeah, I drive a Volvo FH540 and I've got a reinforced flatbed triaxle trailer with a reinforced headboard and tailboard to all the steel. So it's, I love the truck. I do have my open license, so I can drive Road Ranger and I have done so before. But, yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about the Volvos or the automatic transmissions. I think they're pretty good trucks.
Are you treated differently from your male counterparts, or does everyone treat you the same?
Look, there is definitely points where you do get treated a little differently, but I've never let it affect me. So how I first started in the trucking industry was I spent 2 years driving for a local courier in Mackay. I started out in a 16-tonne flatbed and then also into a 14-tonne. Our company handles mostly engineering components and all mining stuff around town. So I got a lot of load restraint experience very quickly. There was a few people when I first started out that not that they didn't think that women could do it, but they had experience before with a few drivers that had come through that because they were women, they didn't think they had to, tie things down as tight as they could because they couldn't get it any tighter and all that sort of stuff. So there is definitely people still out there that do believe that women can't necessarily do it as well. But I've always just let my actions speak more than any words that I can speak.
Good on you.
Just get in, get it done. And I've never had a person who may have a bit of doubt about me seeing what I can do and seen me in action that have the same opinion after they see me. Don't really try and get too vocal about it. Yeah, I just get in and get my job done.
Well, I bet your dad's really proud.
Yeah, he is. Don't think he really wanted me to get into trucking like when I was younger, as a lot of truck drivers seem to do. They want something more for their kids. But I think now that I've gone out and done it and he's seen how happy I am and how well I do at the job, that, yeah, he's definitely proud.
Well, mate, I'll keep an eye out for you in Brisbane. I'll be there Monday, so and our depot's out round that way. I'll keep an eye out. Mate, I hope you go well at the convoy, and please keep in touch, mate. Buddy, you travel safe out there on the road, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Yeah, you shouldn't be able to miss me. I'll be in a bright yellow Volvo. They stand out pretty well on the road, and same to you. I stay safe out there, and I'll keep an eye out for you as well.
Good on you, Kate. Interesting, isn't it? And her dad's been in the game for 45 years. She's clocking up 60 hours a week. It's a big week, Rod.
It is, mate, yes. And she's running up and down to Bruce, and let's hope that they make it safer for her over the next few years when they're spending that money out there, mate.
Rod, you got a question for us this week?
Mate, I suppose what I'd like to ask generally is what state has the best roads? But not only what state, why? It might be because of the design. It might be because you only travel one state. Not everybody travels the heap. But I think we need to take a poll as to what state has the best roads and why. And there's a little background to that, Luke. Many years ago, as anybody drives down the road, you look at the roadworks and you think, geez, why does it take so long? Now, I asked people, probably 10 different people over the last 15 years, to write me a little concise thing on what it takes to build a road. Now, we're not road engineers. We look at it and we say, geez, why didn't they fix that faster? But I still can't get someone to do it. And I hope that if we had a bit more understanding, and yes, a little bit of education can be a dangerous thing, as my mate said at the DG course last weekend, but if we understood just a little bit of why it takes so long to build and why it costs so much, then maybe blokes would be a bit more understanding of roadworks, do the right thing. And generally, I've got a view that a couple of those remote estates have the better roads, but I'd like to hear other drivers' views.
Good on you, Rod. We want to hear from them too. Luke Boner, radioguy@gmail.com, or go onto our Facebook page. And if you want to leave us a voice message or an email, please do. And we'll make you part of Truckee Tuesday. Rod Hannafy, always good to talk. I'll let you keep going. Convoy for Kids tomorrow, which would be the 17th. And, it was lovely to meet Kate. And I've got to tell you, it was really, really good to meet Caden. And good luck to you, Caden. We'll keep an eye on you as well. Good on you, Rod.
Cheers, mate. Safe travelling to war.
Thank you so much for listening. We've got another episode coming up very, very soon. We love your feedback. We live off it. And you can do that. Luke Boner, radioguy@gmail.com. Have a look at our Facebook, Luke Boner, that radio guy. And please leave us voice messages because we react to each and every one of them. Stay safe. As Lawsy would say, be kind to each other. And my thought for the day, silence is golden, but duct tape is silver. The Bonafide Podcast, where we don't tell you what to think. We just give you something to think about.
But isn't silver worse than gold?
But it's nearly as good.
That doesn't make any sense.
Goodbye. Okay, now listen, before you go, a quick reminder, winter doesn't have to walk all over you. Get on the front foot. Nature Bees Power Pollen. It is your winter defense kit. More energy, immune support, nutrients, antioxidants, and it's all in one beautiful little golden capsule. And you don't need to swallow the capsules whole either. I mean, you can just sprinkle it on your breakfast, on your porridge, in your smoothies, in your juice. Power Pollen's sweet, nutty taste is both a flavour and an energy boost. And it's proof that it's just Mother Nature. You can grab a 6-month supply for $160, and they're throwing in an extra month and 2 bars of their famous pollen and honey soap for free. Comes with a money-back guarantee, otherwise I wouldn't endorse it, and I've been taking it since the year 2000. Click the link in the description and order yours today and say goodbye to winter blues. Nature Bee, helping you stay on top of winter and not under it. And a big thanks to Nature Bee for powering up another Bonafide episode. So let's wrap it up with one last bit of wisdom, rodent related, of course. Don't lose sleep over things that scurry. Plug in Pestrol's rodent-free Max and let it do the worrying. It's $139, comes with a 100-day money-back guarantee and a 2-year warranty. They're good odds. Buy the Pestrol Rodent-Free Max today and also receive the in-car rodent repeller absolutely free. Valued at $50, free of charge. It's a limited time offer. And you have to use the code BONA, B-O-N-A. Links are in the description.